Number two, how does my product engage audiences and how do I intend to market it as a real media text? Very interesting question, much like all the other questions that are usually asked around on the net. Now, I think this question is again a fairly simple one because our filming technique was really uh, to the point. We create an enigma in our film by virtue of the fact that we have the death of the lead character in the start. Now, in most films, you will notice that the death of the lead character in the very beginning of the film is not a very common thing. It, in fact, breaks convention of the majority of the films that you will find in the theaters. Likewise, as we progress in the story, you will notice that there are a lot of questions that are unanswered, loopholes in the plot that I have left personally to the postmodernist audience to derive their own conclusions from. I'm a bit of a postmodernist at heart when it comes to films, modernist when it comes to literature, and romantic when it comes to poetry. But to stick to the topic, I have tried my level best to put in an enigma in the film. Why? Because I like engaging the audiences. I like to make my audience from a passive audience to an active audience. I have done that by virtue, as I, at the risk of repeating myself, by putting a cliffhanger in the very start of the movie. So basically, those who have seen the opening sequence of our film will notice that basically when you watch the film, it is a few scenes that don't really release much background about the lead character, and then in the end, it is just shown that the lead character is hanging himself from a roof after what a few basic basically shooting a few topics of between himself and his friend, which really doesn't seem like a cause that would push someone to suicide. It is only then when it engages the audience into this questioning phase as to why is it that a lead character has just had this conversation on the phone with his friend about seemingly normal stuff, and then all of a sudden has decided to hang himself from a fan. I mean, that is a question, right? Any normal person would question that. Why is it that a character who has just been introduced to us all of a sudden willy-nilly has decided to kill himself for no justified reason, at least at that moment in time? So it engages the audience to further pay a bit more attention to the plot that me and my good friend have worked so hard to put into screen, and then to present it to you all. That is the essence of our film and our plot, and that is how we intend to engage the audiences. Now, of course, majority of the audience. But by the way, before I move on to the second half of the question, we took our concerns straight to the people rather than speculating off of no information. We took our concerns direct to the people, where majority of the people voted. Roughly 90% of our voters voted in favor of watching a film, and 90% of our voters also agreed on the fact that if there is a cliffhanger in the beginning of the film, the audience is more likely to be engaged. Likewise, we also took a bit of democratic spirit. In the spirit of democracy, we took as we said, we took our concerns to the people. So we decided to also ask people if they would watch our film knowing what the topic is. And it was a 50-50 vote at start, but then eventually it was agreed that a film based on a topic and a social issue as underrepresented as ours was ever to be produced, people would essentially flood the theaters, or at least our loyal voters would. So that is, in essence, the complete reasoning behind the question as to how exactly, or much rather by what means, will we achieve the attention of what is primarily deemed as a passive audience to our product and thereby make them an active audience. That is the ultimate answer to the question. Now, moving on, the second part, how is it that if it was a real media text, we would market it? Personally, as a director, I would want to make sure that, given that our film being as underrepresented as it is, I would want it to be available on all OTT services and all theaters across the world. So a release date was agreed upon between myself and my producer and editor as to be basically a Friday, essentially, or a Saturday, I believe. No, Saturday. Saturday was agreed upon by between myself and a friend of and of course my friend and group partner as the official release date for the film. Because it is a weekend, a lot of people will be able to attend the premiere, and therefore we will have a larger audience. Similarly, I've also wanted to make sure of the fact that it's available on all OTT services such as Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, what have you, because I want to make sure that my product reaches as many people as possible. How I would go about doing that, I would basically give everyone a piece of the pie. Whatever revenue we would generate, I would use it to pay Netflix and Amazon Prime for their services in putting my film on their platform, and likewise if they and then they're basically splitting the prize money 50-50 between myself and the OTT services. Basically, if I use their name, for example, if I put it in, like, have Netflix say that this is a Netflix film, I would like 50% of the revenues that they've generated. Likewise, if I put my film on their services, then we would the same 50-50 formula would be applied. That is how we will market the film, and then therefore generate revenue from it. We will also go about doing a bit of cross-media convergence and synergy by making sure that some merchandise is available before the film. We were mostly looking into making mugs and, for example, journals and keychains and t-shirts and things like that for our film and film series. I was not particularly looking into video games and whatnot, much like Marvel has done with their films, because given the seriousness of the topic, I don't think it would be entirely appropriate to make action figures or stuff like that for our film. But therefore, I've decided that for merchandise, we are going to release a set of merch. For example, the costume that was worn by the main character will be put on display, and we will ensure that certain pieces of the costume are also replicated and then sold to the general public should they want to wear it. T-shirts and whatnot will also be produced, as I mentioned earlier, and we will ensure that the release of the merchandise is a bit earlier than the film, because then that way it attracts more people towards the film. For example, what better an example to follow than like Marvel, who was releasing their characters before they even released the film. So that is basically some of many tactics that we're also doing. Though, and call me old school, but I've always been a fan of DVDs as well. Though it's an old method, if I may make a Star Wars reference, it's an old code, but it checks out. Basically, we will make sure that our film is also available on hard copy, particularly in Blu-ray in full definition, should it be marketed. Basically, it will also be available to those who do not prefer using OTT services and neither prefer going to the theater but like to watch films on DVDs for their convenience or for the fact that they have a system that they do not wish to replace, what have you. So that is how basically we are going to achieve the idea of marketing our film. We will also do guerrilla marketing. We will take the market by surprise, and we will ensure that our film reaches its intended audience, and at the same time its merchandise, its information, everything about Black Sheep is widely available to the masses. That, my friends, is the answer to the great question and fairly simple question: how will we market our film? Should it be a real media text? And most importantly, how exactly is it that our product will engage audiences? Because that's a very frequently asked question, as I put it up earlier, and I think it needs answering. Another interesting thing that we plan to do when it comes to marketing, before it slips my mind, is that we will release certain cuts of the film, extended cuts, exclusive cuts with scenes not previously shown before, to generate more of an interest into the film, to create a larger demand than what already exists. So that, again, is, I think, one of our trump cards in our deck of cards. So that is the answer to the question. As it has been posed, that how will we engage our audiences and how will we market our film should it be a real media text.